I can't even what's
From orbit movies.
We good? Okay, we will get started this evening with our work meeting. Thank you everybody for being here. Got a full house. We will just get right in. It's a big night. Let's get right into the agenda. Item 1.1, review of this evening's agenda. Anything from, Michael, do you want to speak to how we're gonna handle the public?
Yes, so we'd like to just have a brief introduction on all 5 automall related items tonight. As you know, we did mail out a notice, just a public notice for comment. It's not officially a public hearing because we satisfied the public hearing requirements of the planning commission. We'll have a map up on the screen just referring to all 4 areas of the automall. And then we'd just like to take comment all up front. And then, of course, the development team, by our policy, they have the opportunity to address or present their items before you. I believe their attorney is gonna be available online. It's online now, okay? So, yeah, that's kind of the process of how we're gonna go through that. And of course, as questions come up from the council, as you know, this has been a team project. So Todd and Blake and myself and others, Nathan, will be ready to maybe answer questions that you have.
Okay, so we're doing that at 9 point,
Yeah.
at 9, even though,
Do you
cause you've got,
do you
we've
wanna
got,
do that as part of the pit?
So the pit has its own public hearing,
Yeah,
this would
that's
be
separate.
Yeah,
in
sure, yeah.
item
So an 11,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
11.2.
Yeah.
okay, right.
Yeah.
Starting before
Yeah.
11.2.
And just so I'm, go ahead.
I'd just like to make a comment. I think what happens, and we've talked about this before about an appropriate procedure for public input on things like this, is that there's so often where we put the public comment up front, then there's a presentation, and then there's the debate, and then there's a vote. And the public never really got to hear the proposals before they made any comments. Does that make sense?
I think tonight we're doing presentation,
We'll do the introduction, allow the applicant to
And then
speak.
open up
speak,
public.
and then
yeah,
public
okay.
comment.
I appreciate, thank you for the
then
clarification.
rebuttal,
I like that.
if you will, but
Yeah.
response to the concerns,
Appreciate it.
and then
Yeah.
discussion by us.
Good.
So it's similar how the planning commission
Yeah.
handled it.
Okay.
Then motion, so we can, okay. Okay, any other comments on the agenda tonight? Questions? Okay. 1.2, future agenda items, anything from council or staff, future agenda items?
So we just had the league conference over the last week, and there was Dr. Courtney Flint did a well-being study, and we were part of that study. I would love for that presentation to be brought probably to a joint work meeting, because it talks about how your city's developed, and it's not just like well-being, like mental health or physical health, but it's about well-being in the city, how you function around the city, walkable, livable community, this kind of stuff like that. So I mentioned it to Mike, and he uses a lot of that influence to help dictate what we do in the city and how we move forward.
So like at our next joint,
Yeah, and they do a multi-year study, and it sounds like they're planning on doing it again in the coming year if we wanna do it, participate in it.
That would be a good mix with what we have scheduled for the joint, with parks and
Okay.
our plan and kind of where we're at and where we're going. That would work really well.
love it.
So Michael, are you arranging that with them?
Yes, I can certainly do that.
Any other future agenda items?
Did you want to talk about the Heritage Preserve project?
Oh, yes. Airman Preserve. The Laguna Malibu.
Laguna Malibu, yeah,
It's
we
just
just,
interesting to hear about that today.
at staff, I mean, we tried to bring it forward,
Oh, I know what you're saying.
and then,
Okay, I'm with
the
you.
applicant pulled it back, but we're hearing that they feel like we're holding it. Staff wants to bring it to you, you guys can make a decision, so we're just looking, should we bring it back to a future meeting?
I think we have to based on the comments, they're calling it a.
There is an
Staff,
application in, and they withdrew it. Or they didn't withdraw it, they just asked us to hold it.
So are they still asking us to hold it, or are they asking that we?
They called and asked me to hold it, and said they'd call me back in a couple weeks when they were ready to go. I haven't received that call back, ready to go yet.
We just received a phone call from the property owner that says city staff is stonewalling this, so this is not us holding it, we're doing it at their request, so I'm either, staff, I wanna bring it forward, if they're gonna accuse us of that.
Well, I'm, full disclosure, Lauren and I met with John on, was it yesterday? It was yesterday.
A long time ago.
Yeah, and I don't know, after that conversation, work we've done after that, I think it's an easy phone call with them. Do you want us to hold it, or do you wanna bring it through?
Based on what, and they'd have the same information we now do.
So if we have all the same information, as it, do we need to press ahead, or is there something
And just
else?
real quick, I know it's not technically agenda item, but real quick, they were asking for two things mainly, whether we would consider a special
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 assessment
assessment
area
district.
versus a service district.
And all the indication that legally we cannot, a special assessment area will not cover the long-term expenses.
Right.
And the special service district guy came, like he
So
represents the state and basically said, don't do a special service district.
That was a good explanation of the difference between the two, and that's what Draper did, and why we were working on those sorts of things, but afterwards, and I told them, look, no, you shouldn't have any expectations here, we'll send this information on to our people, and tell us if this assessment area thing is viable, at least right now, looks like it's not.
So the experts are telling us the SAA and SID, neither one are
Long-term.
viable long-term options.
SAA is only good for 5 years.
Got it.
So it's really good for infrastructure, to build the
So-
infrastructure and has to be paid back within
But the
5 years.
O&M is,
Cannot be
there's
covered,
not a way to cover that,
basically.
other than
Taxing everybody.
taxing the whole city. to
Taxing
pay.
the whole city.
Got it.
Cause they did mention possibly but you can't create a special taxing district just for one area. That's
So-
the way property taxes work.
In any event, I think we need to look at having some discussion at the next meeting, whether it's this discussion amongst
Yeah.
ourselves, right, or it's on their application or not.
Well, I think we should.
I think we need to say
I
it's
think
our
we should have a
intent.
work meeting agenda item to discuss
That's
all the information that everybody has and just.
Yeah, as I say, that
We're all on
was
the same
literally just
page and do
yesterday, I
that.
just saw
Yeah.
your email response to the SAA thing, so I think we need to discuss it a bit.
Okay. So let's, if they know what they know and they don't wanna move forward, at this point, we tried, we've said, let's move forward, but. There's Mud.
Yeah, we'll be on the work meeting on October 26th.
Okay. I'd forgotten about that.
They might push it November just so the staff reports we do tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, so it'll be.
And the second.
That is the first meeting in November.
Yeah, it does take a while.
Okay. We only have, speaking of that, we only have one meeting in November, one in December.
So we do not have that 29th or whatever it is.
We have the joint meeting in November.
In December though, no meetings, okay, good. Okay. So that on the calendar was like, what the heck?
Joint meeting the Wednesday after
The one on the 28th.
Thanksgiving.
I won't be here.
Need to call somebody.
Okay. 1.3, council discussion of future citizen recognitions. I will say, we kind of talked about, I want to do the one for he who shall not be named yet. I want to find a way to do that Congressman Owens did, or that Burgess did. I want to find a way to recognize him. Want to check with his availability the next couple council nights, I just know, which maybe we just play the video and just. Congressman Owens recognized one of our officers, and he doesn't know about it, right?
Right.
It's a cool little thing that he did for him.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on 1.3 right now? I can't think of anything else right now. Okay. Moving into administrative reports, item 2.1. Discussion related to the proposed development on the Game Point property. Tammy, you running with this?
Yes, so I'm just gonna get it started. Just to remind you that I think you're all familiar with the Game Point property, which is just off of Harriman, Maine, north of the Auto Mall. In 2019, the developer purchased this property with the intent of constructing a large entertainment facility. and entered into an agreement with the city that they would have 2 years to construct. And in the event that it wasn't constructed, the city had a repurchase agreement with them to purchase the property back at the original purchase price. But then the pandemic happened, and that created some challenges for the developer. That created a lot of challenges for a lot of people. And so the developer requested an extension, and the last extension was done this last May. That extended the repurchase agreement option to January of 2023, and put the requirement on the developer that they bring a plan to the city council by October 2022. And then they pull a building permit by December of 2022. So tonight, we have the developer here to present their plan to the council, and they are requesting some input and feedback on the path moving forward. So I would like to turn the time over to Aaron Osmond and his team to discuss their latest plans.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to the council, several council members. Thank you, Councilman Shields. I appreciate your time on multiple phone calls, giving great advice, and just the general council patience as we work through this challenge. I just want to add a couple of insights just for context into what we went through, and then I'll be turning some time over to my brother, who is now joining me in this project, who is our co-developer on this effort. I wanted the council to understand that when we hit COVID, it did affect our primary financing for the development of this 40,000 square foot facility that we were planning to bring to the city. We had all of our plans built, all of our design work done, engineering work done. We were ready literally that next week to come and bring plans for approval by the city. So it was a pretty rough experience for us and set us back. Since then, the Rush Funplex has been installed over in West Jordan, a very large 50,000 square foot facility. That dramatically impacted the feasibility study of us being able to build something of similar size in this area without significant potential revenue impact. So we had to start over and find a different use for this property. We were very clear about the fact that it needed to be either some kind of restaurant, bespoke restaurant use, or restaurant capability where we could bring sales tax revenue in a restaurant entertainment kind of concept. And we have put together a couple of plans to show you how we could achieve that and attract tenants in a productive and effective way. The plans that you're going to see are reflective of the development concepts of my brother, who runs an Osmond Development Company, who has done several projects like this and with 30 plus years of development experience in the Utah Valley and Salt Lake Valley areas. I'll turn some time over to him to explain it, but just wanted you to have that context as we move through these plans and understand what it is that we're going to be talking about today. And any questions or clarifications about what I've said so far from the council? Great. All right, so let's move right into the proposed use concepts. I'm going to turn some time over to Jared to walk us through.
Would you like me to stand up, or what's the?
Whatever you're most comfortable.
I don't know how to do this with you guys yet, so this is new for me. Glad to be here. Jared Osmond. All I do is develop ground, and so I've done this in several cities: Pleasant Grove, American Fork. Did a big development in American Fork right off of 500 East, and I'm working on a big one right now in Saratoga Springs, 10 acres. Working through just finishing that one right now, where we've had great success, tremendous success, bringing restaurants and bringing the retail with really great architectural value to the project as well. I think the architecture we have is beautiful. It's different. It's modern. I see that working here as well. I understand the situation that my brother and his partners have been in on this. One of the struggles that I have with anytime you bring a single tenant to a space, the potential is that tenant could go out of business and then you got big buildings sitting. And I don't think that it necessarily couldn't work. You could bring, the Game Point type property there, but again, you're dealing with mostly single tenant situations. And I think that's a business that could be challenged in this time, especially with an upcoming recession or a recession that we're in. And I think this works. One of the things I've noticed in real estate development is even during a recession, real estate does well in this type of commercial use. This type of small restaurant to bigger restaurants. It's the one thing people can't buy online as an experience. I call it experiential retail. And this experiential retail works. I've done it for 30 years with no hiccups. And it's been very successful. When I started my project in Saratoga Springs, we have a picture of that someplace.
Yep, I'll get to that. You want me to
Yeah, just go to it.
I'm just gonna go to those projects just so you can have an example. Those three plans, by the way, are different approaches that we could take with the land. We're seeking for the council's input on that, by the way.
Yeah, we can go back to that. I would love to get your feedback and I'm sensitive to what the council wants. I understand the city wants, but I also know you want tax base that's gonna work. And I think I can do that. I know I can. I can bring that to you. I think our architecture, we can change colors, we can do things. I spend more money on architecture just so that it's pleasing, that people come in. We do lots of cool things with spaces. I have several tenants right now willing to follow me. And I've done that consecutively. Even in Pleasant Grove, I received the Developer of the Year award a couple of years ago. Not that means anything, but they know that I do it right. And so we did that, and then we went to American Fork and did another project there, and out in Saratoga finishing this one. Same type of architecture in every one of these buildings. And these tenants continue to follow me, one to the next. And they would love to come out. And it's a good mix. The tenant mix is super important. And I make sure not to step over the other tenants. I make sure there's, agreements in place that tenants are protected so that they can thrive. Whether it's, I've got several nail salons that'll come to me, but I'd never dump them all in the same place. We get places like Orange Theory Fitness and Fix It Mobile, and we get some really great dessert places like Blocks. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they're amazing. It's like crumble cookie on crack. It's incredible. It's a lot of fun. So this one right here is the one I'm doing out in Saratoga Springs, and it's a nice mix of some office, which office struggles. You probably know that office struggles, but small office that you can make almost a retail, which we've done. We brought in like a Spa Trouvé, an aesthetics company. The top floor of our two-story office building you can see there now has a lot of tenants that really could be in spaces that would work as a retail space. But this filled up. As soon as we announced it, as soon as we came into it, it made a lot of sense. One of the struggles you've got with this particular piece of land is that there's not an anchor. Now, down the street there is. You've got the Winco, but it's not anchored. But how this works is you have buildings that are demisable. So I can bring in a 10,000 square foot building, bring in a big restaurant. Like I've got a couple breakfast places. Like this building right now has no demising walls. You can take this and make it anything you want. Even though it shows demising walls, this is just an example of what I've done. And I've got big breakfast, sit-down breakfast places, like True Religion. If you've ever been in Orem and have had True Religion for breakfast, it'll change your world. It's amazing. But they would love to come do something like this. I have tenants that want to do this, but it's got to make sense. One of the reasons this is the plan that I would prefer. I know there's probably a little kickback to that because we've tried to stack everything, but the idea with retail and the way that it works, it's kind of the kiss of death unless it's a destination to put something in the middle of a parking lot hidden off of a public road unless you've got an anchor tied to it. We want this to work. The whole idea is we want it to work. We want your tax base to work. We want the development to work so we don't lose money. And we want to bring in tenants that want to be there. And the whole point is to have them there, we've got to have them in a space that's demisable, architecture that's beautiful. We can put all the stuff that's in the zoning. We'll make sure to match the zoning, whatever you need us to do, whatever that looks like. We're happy to do it. And so we welcome your feedback, but I've done this now, this particular type of building, and I've done several different locations. You're welcome to go look at them. I'm happy to give you all the locations. And it's been very successful. And we've done it with tenants now. I've probably got 10 tenants that would immediately sign up to
We
follow
have
that.
a list of draw tenants that we already know are willing to work with us.
Yeah, right there.
And I just want to add to the council that our goal tonight is to seek your conceptual, approval of pursuing something like this, and then we'll come back rapidly with plans and development, efforts to move to entitlement. We're not going to wait and waste any more time. We're ready to engage and get going as soon as we have clarity from the council about your willingness to support this kind of direction from a restaurant use perspective and some retail.
We know the sit-down restaurant thing is a big thing. We would love to bring that. We do have some really great, like Burgers and Barley and Blue Lemon. We've got like I said, the breakfast place, True Religion. They command a huge market share in Orem, for example. You're welcome to go talk to any of these or go look at the spaces, but we can do that. We can demise them. We can create, if you want us to play with the architecture, we can do that too. We're really wide open. We want to make sure it's something that you want. But I also want it to work. And that's the biggest thing.
That's really the summary, council, and we welcome your feedback. We'll take notes and come back based on your direction, but we're ready to have some discussion.
And we'd love to go vertical quickly.
Question about the the way that you're phrasing this is you want to do something, but it has to make sense. I'm not sure what the "but it has to make sense" qualifier means in terms of
That's a good question.
what you're doing.
So I think the point behind that is, again, going back to tenant strategy. Without an anchor, that's gonna automatically draw traffic into it. This property doesn't have an anchor. And so it's gotta make sense, every tenant's gonna want some visibility on a busier road. And so hence the reason I've stacked go back that further. But we can do stuff like this, but it's always gonna struggle. Anything on the interior is gonna struggle until you get a big anchor there. Now you bring in a place like True Religion Breakfast Pancake House, they're gonna do really well, and people will be okay being on the interior. This particular plan puts everything kind of out so everybody can see, they get the pop of their signage, that kind of thing.
This model is more similar to Mountain View Village in Riverton, which you all should be familiar with. I mean, it's a very successful restaurant draw location. That's the concept, and really the only thing we're saying is we wanna make it work from a standpoint of the tenants. To be able to create an environment for the tenant visibility to be high, we don't want them hid. Now, we can go back to these plans, Councilman, where you and I talked about, having one or two core anchor locations. That could work. But the risk is that we lose a tenant and we have a big empty box and they're not along that main drive. And so we just want that discussion tonight. What do you want to see? Where we can make these plans work, but our preference, our priority would be this last plan.
And those buildings are stacked in there. We don't know all the tenants who are coming in. We may lose a building because of parking. We realize you can only build what you can park. And we have a good tenant mix, and we're happy to make sure we're conforming to that there's plenty, but this is the most efficient way to park.
And you think a 7,800 square foot demisable or not demised area is sufficient for a restaurant of that caliber?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well, you look at a sit-down restaurant. I mean, then it depends on the restaurant. Roost Chris is probably 7,000 square feet.
Olive Garden is roughly 5,000 square feet.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That gives us plenty, and I've built buildings upwards of 10,000 square feet, and beyond. We can do whatever size box and configuration depending on the tenant, but I know this works. When I get tenants that come to me, this works, and if someone takes 5,000, like Blue Lemon, for example, they'll come take anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, depending on how big their space is. They've got 3,000 feet with me over in Saratoga Springs, and they love that model. And we've got nice outdoor patio seating for them, and it works, but it also leaves the next part of that building available for a tenant that would actually help these businesses.
Complementary to.
It is interesting how they feed off of each other, that competition's
In my
good.
mind, I'm thinking of that corner over by Shields on 114th and.
Yeah.
Where that Blue Lemon
That's a great example.
Right where the Blue Lemon is, like, they have.
Exactly.
Now, there's a huge anchor there for sure, right?
Huge anchor. But those type of tenants will come, no doubt about it. And I think there's enough happening here, there's enough buzz happening on this particular road that will make tons of sense to them. It's just a little bit off the beaten path. We've got to sell that to them. I think I can. I know that I can. Like I said, I've got several that'll follow me, and once that starts to happen, it's like an avalanche. People start to come in. Once they see the coming soon signs, other tenants flock to it, because they realize they're not alone in this.
What other questions from other council members do you have?
So I wanna play the new guy card.
Yeah.
So sitting in last year or the year before, even in the meetings, seeing this come a while, and then reading the development agreement, where's the gaming portion or where's the original intent from the purpose of the land, right?
Great point.
And then, with the extension of something being alike or similar to that. And that's kind of what the city's missing. I know we've got Fat Cats down the road now, we've got the one in West Jordan. This is a great facility, right? We need this is needed, but.
How do we stay true
It's
to
kind
that?
of, it's kind of what I'm thinking too, to just add to that, so I'm getting my takeaway from your plan and all, but I think, at least expectations wise, I don't think we can give you a definitive answer tonight. There's other things we gotta talk about and close with property purchase and all that kind of thing, but as far as just feedback, it's hard. This is the first time we're seeing any of this, none of it's in the packet.
Right.
And the issue with this that I think is different than other developments is that this city owns the property, right?
We actually.
They own it, we have first right of refusal.
Yeah.
The city purchased the property, right?
Yeah.
And this I think is to Teddy's point, the city purchased the property and we're willing to portion this out of the auto mall for a specific purpose, right? For an anchor tenant, right? It's a different use, entertainment, 40,000 square foot building to draw more people in to help support the retail around it. And the kind of the hard part I'm at, like what's difficult for me to swallow looking at this is that this is what we already have everywhere else. else, so this is more of
Or
what we
maybe
have.
competing against
We're
the other side of the
cannibalizing,
mall, the other
cannibalizing
side,
the other
yeah.
like businesses that are already
Yeah.
in.
Well, I could speak to that a little bit. I mean, we certainly could look for bigger tenants and create that. That is a very difficult thing when you start looking at anchor tenants and where they wanna be, like the Targets, and if you're looking for a gaming, so we have small, businesses that would come here all day. We've got a, golf simulator and stuff like that. I mean, you still get entertainment. We can certainly bring tenants like that, and we're happy to bring a certain portion of that if that would help. I think this is an efficient way to get your tax base and handle that. Holding out for an anchor tenant in a recession, I don't know how long that takes.
Well,
I
it's
don't know.
also, we've done some detailed feasibility reports that I just wanna push back a little bit, Councilman, and just say, that kind of a facility will not perform in this current environment from a reach perspective. We know that from the research that we've done.
Yeah, and that's okay.
That's the
why-
challenge, yeah,
That's
that's
why
the
you're not
challenge.
building it.
Yeah.
Exactly, we wanted that more
So
than
from
anything,
the-
yeah.
So to push back, right?
Yeah.
The city's point of view, we purchased the property with public funds,
Understood.
right, for a different purpose and agreed to sell it at that
Understood.
price for that purpose. If that doesn't work, then kind of our process has to be, well, how does that fold back into the bigger picture? I know you guys are looking at, okay, what can we make work there? How does it pencil? Totally get it. And I totally, from a business point of view, from your perspective, I totally see where this makes the most sense for you. It's tougher to swallow because I shouldn't say we're struggling, but it's taken a long time to just get this sort of stuff in with the anchor tenants that we have.
Or even with Smiths, right, we keep on seeing transition through that.
At Winco, how long did it
Yeah, the
take
Winco there too.
for some of those things to come out of the ground? For the other half of the other end of the auto mall where we've done the same thing off to commercial, same deal, right?
And then with the new development of Mountain View, I mean, and then we got the Daybreak Plaza just to the north there, so it's tough. It's needed in the city, but.
I would say this. If it's feasible to fill it and make it work and create a tax base, I think we can have negotiations about what percentage of it might be dedicated to entertainment type of things, or maybe,
Yeah.
you know, restaurant type of things, or something like
And
that.
I
Maybe
do
we can,
love
we can
how-
talk about that, but I guess I'm saying,
Yeah,
we gotta fill out all of our spaces with as much retail tax base as we can generate all over the city.
agreed.
And it's,
If it's this and they're all full, totally.
yeah, that's the thing about something like this, is that it's easier to fill 3,500 square feet or 1,500 square feet than it is to fill 10 or 15,000 square feet.
40.
Or 40,000 square feet, right? And it's, you may have more turnover and you may have, you know, spaces that aren't occupied, but if you get a good mix of attractants in there, you know, entertainment, restaurant, other stuff.
That's why I like
You know.
the original plan better, that it sounds like you've talked to them about with the two bigger sit
Yeah,
down
I do too.
restaurants with
I'm
others,
curious
right?
how it would work.
And I
And
love
that-
that Jared, I mean, you got the people that will follow you, that's.
Well, and it's one
critical.
thing that I do differently too than a lot of developers. You've seen how long it takes for some of these buildings to come up, even with anchors. I build it all on spec, knowing that if I build it, they will come kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. I mean, because it creates that, I guess that desire to be there and something that's like kind of the hustle and bustle of it all. It can change. This is a concept design. You know, if I get a bunch of sit-down restaurants, a few of these buildings go away because we need the parking. Sit-down restaurants are gonna come. It's gonna be part of that. That's part of the entertainment. I mean, if you look at what entertainment truly is, every time I go on a date, it's to go sit down and have a bite to eat. I'm food motivated. So that's kind of what this will end up being, and then you'll get things around it that'll feed off of it. And these tenants feed off of each other. I love the idea of having a 40,000 square foot building and a single tenant. But when that tenant goes out of business, you're sitting on no tax base on
That's why I
40,000
said we
square
shouldn't
feet.
do that.
No, it's a
Yeah.
mistake. Right, yeah, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out
Just
there.
for the record.
I'm just saying, I love the idea, but you're also looking, if you had something like that was a national chain, but even those don't work. We've seen several companies
You can
go.
go back to the other.
Yeah, I can.
Even the second story office
Which one,
space would be huge.
It
It would be cool, yeah.
Either one,
Yeah.
like
We
A or
could-
B.
If we work or
Facility.
Kill,
I mean,
I was-
C really, just looks like.
I'm actually wondering if that
it's just hard
You
to
could find a
interior.
mixed use, cause then you have some tenants during the day, you know, that are there, you have
Yeah.
an employment opportunity.
Like a
Right.
mixed use office.
Like a mixed use, right, so you can keep some retail tax base, but you also have now created
Second
space
story
for
office, yeah.
some services, some employment type of stuff, right?
And that's the hard part in this area, even for the sit-down restaurants. I'm curious to see how the construction side. But everyone that we talk to says we
Try and get in there on a Friday or Saturday,
I've never
gosh,
been able to get in.
2 hour wait.
But every sit-down restaurant we talk to says we need daytime,
Business, yeah.
daytime population.
Our,
Not just housing, we need
But I think that's changed with the pandemic, honestly, I think with so many
Oh, yeah.
people working from home.
So
If you go to
Sure.
these,
Yeah.
I went to
agree.
JCW's today, was insane.
Well, we just
Yeah,
There
it's
were,
packed all the time.
I mean,
Over
My-
at
I guess my
Mountain View
point
Village,
is,
every
at least
place,
for me,
every place, yeah.
just gut reaction, right, is really what you're getting from us
sure,
tonight is if you were to say for sure we have 2 sit-down restaurants,
I'd
right,
be more than that.
taking up this much
Yeah,
space
the LEIs,
each,
yeah.
right, and then, like, cause the Plan C told me, it really just looks like strip mall to me.
You know, it's the same exact plan, you're just orientating the buildings differently and creating this common space. Again, I don't love the other two plans as much, only from just developer mind going.
Well, I get this
I struggle with
You'll have
it.
asphalt all around you though.
Yeah, but not necessarily. I mean, this is just a concept layout. We'll have common
This is-
spaces and grass.
this is good
and
planning,
No,
this is a
yeah,
good planning
this is a
concept with the
well
parking's
parked-
in behind.
Right.
Lots
This
of
is
things
modern
can happen. They
planning.
get their hair cut, go to dinner. I'll give you an example though. The sushi restaurant that just opened in Saratoga Springs, and I welcome you to go to it. Go over to Saratoga Springs across from Costco, you'll see the buildings. They had 2,000 people show up the first day. People are dying to get out. I mean, they want to. Cut Box, it just opened up.
Until they lose their jobs.
Yeah. Well, even during recession and the Great Depression, the one thing that survived was entertainment.
Yeah.
One thing that survived was
I
small
know-
entertainment.
I know we're on time, guys, I know that we have to move on, but I just wanted to ask the council this question. We wanted to come to the council today to show you that we're making progress, that we're not wasting our time, and to let you know that we're committed to move forward with development. The decision you have to make is if you want to move away from that, and you have the opportunity cost of buying it back and then trying to find another developer to develop it, we're ready to go now, and we're willing to follow your counsel on what we should do. So that's what we wanted to make sure we got across today, and get your guidance about next step. What should we do next?
Go ahead, Sherry.
I've been listening all the way home, but, my concern is this, the whole parcel was preserved for Automall. That was the whole idea, save it, preserve it, set it aside for Automall. You came in and convinced us that this game point would be great. Part of that is, a few years ago, we had a study that talked about this area was missing that entertainment portion of it, and it created a destination for us because we're a cul-de-sac, we don't have destinations, right? We have to have destinations, so I myself decided, yeah, it's a good decision to go that way because it fills that vacancy in what we're missing, okay? There's no question that we don't have enough sit-down restaurants, but we have a lot of little strip mall stuff. And so it concerns me to go in that direction. I understand all of your points about that because what I don't wanna do is do a few block buildings in there and then have a bunch of businesses constantly going out of business.
Right.
We have enough of that. But I guess to me, I have to roll back a little bit and say, okay, the whole reason we carved this out of the Automall was to fill a vacancy in our inventory in our city. And so are we just filling it up with restaurants? Or Orange Theories, or, those types of things which do not bring any tax revenue to us. They might go eat at the restaurant if they go work out. Probably not, they'd probably go home and drink their smoothie, I don't know if they do. But, so that's my concern is that I don't wanna steer too far away from that.
I think that's part of our, the discussion that we
Yeah, we need to have, that's why,
right, is
I
okay,
wish we
well,
saw
what
it
respect
what
that
else
so
do we
much,
do? 'Cause I
council.
totally agree,
We
tax generating stuff is better than not, but
Well,
like what other options, what do we,
the
how's it fit
conflict
into
is
our plans?
concept versus market
Yes.
conditions,
for
right?
sure, for sure.
And
And
those
change
things
over
are
the last 2 years,
always
for
gonna
sure.
be in conflict with each other. And there's, debates say, well, you hold on to it until things, then you have carrying costs and other risks, and so nothing is without some kind of a trade-off somewhere, so I completely I agree with everything you're saying, and I have those same concerns. I'm not necessarily saying yes or no. I appreciate the effort to create
Yeah.
some different thinking about it,
Yeah.
some possible different things. I think that, just spitballing here, I think that some discussion about maybe a potential 10,000 square foot, maybe a larger facility that could be used for something else, as part of this development, maybe we could talk
Set
about
aside
some,
for entertainment.
maybe we could talk about some target.
Indoor soccer field.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Love that.
pickleball and indoor
We have a
Something
shooting
right.
range that wants to follow me.
Yeah.
They would take 10,000 square feet. I mean, there's a lot of entertainment
Yeah.
that can still come.
See, and that's my point, I think if we could still get the entertainment in here
Oh,
on
we
the
can.
scale that
We
works,
can.
then we can say.
Yeah.
It's not
just-
just 40,000 square.
We can
foot.
get
The
6 or
365
7
dome.
different entertainment things instead of
Yeah,
one big
yeah,
one,
I'm not
you know?
suggesting it even all has to be entertainment, I just am suggesting that internally,
I get it.
we need to know much better on our, what do you call them, leakage reports? And, on that, just to make sure that we're filling it with what we really are missing in our community.
Yeah, we want to support that too. We care about this community as well. So let's continue to work together on this, come up with a plan that will work. We just wanted that general direction tonight, that we're good to kind of go forward with some more development of our plans and bring it back. That would be what I'm taking from tonight's discussion. Would you agree?
Well, and I would say too, I did some research coming into tonight. To me, you come with, similar to what Deloitte Hansen brings as a developer, Deloitte has his portfolio
His
of
core
people
group
that
of people.
follow him
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And they're successful with him and they go and they know that's,
Yeah.
looking at your, that's what you were gonna
Yeah.
bring is a unique.
Yeah, in fact, I bought ground from Deloitte to do the American Fork project next to his park on Fifth.
Right.
So, yeah, you.
So that's where I said,
Yeah.
Oh, he
you
does.
have the background to bring your.
He sold it to me. I'll show you.
You have the background to me that you're gonna come, I would like to see some of those entertainment pieces in there.
Well, I wanna point out too, that the demising walls here, that's a little deceptive. That these buildings are shells for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I can bring in and I can make this building 10,000 square feet, and we have lots of great entertainment idea. I mean, I could certainly seek those people out. I have a team of marketers and real estate professionals that'll go find entertainment. I know that's what you want. I just want it to be successful, and the reason the demising walls
And
make sense is
let me put it this way.
they feed off each other.
I wanna build off of what you're, it's not necessarily entertainment, it is an attractant.
A draw.
Something that
Sure.
is
Unique.
unique
destination.
to the area, yeah, that brings people
It's-
from
It's
around.
not, and I'm sorry to use this
Yeah.
word, but it's not strip mall of more of what's everywhere that's just stop by on the way, so.
The only thing that I would say to that, just because I'm in the business, and I just wanna just shed light on why I believe this works and why I think it's so good for a city, is you get people that feed off of each other. So you get that one draw. For some people, that draw may be a restaurant that's a sit down, and then they'll walk over and they'll go get an ice cream cone, and then they'll walk over and get a haircut. You know, it's more strip mall-y, but you can make it in a way where there's just beautiful landscape, all the things you need to do to make it pretty, make the architecture great, and make the buildings demisable, so that these sit-down places have other smaller businesses that feed off of it, and that's why it
You could argue that
works.
a breakfast place is a
Oh,
destination.
breakfast place would be,
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but it.
Number
I mean,
one.
I'm-
Huge.
Number
Oh,
one
it's so
thing I
original
hear every
pancake.
time is Trader Joe's, so if
Oh,
you
yeah.
can get Trader Joe's.
You can have whatever you want.
Well,
Tell everybody you can have whatever.
That's a good challenge. I'm on it.
I
got
mean, for,
this.
for takeaway, I have to agree with, I think Steve probably put it best, that it's, we can't really say yes or no, but
Yep.
we like the direction that we're
Yes.
hearing, and they're open to those ideas,
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
and they're, I think, at least for me, I agree with Steve on this, is that we'll want some sort of assurance of a mixture of.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
Is
think
that-
that, yeah, I would agree. And I don't wanna presume, but I understand that you feel some pressure because of a clock ticking deadline coming up,
We do,
right?
we have.
In order to execute under the extension agreement that we have, you guys need an okay and moving forward very quickly.
Correct.
I think that as long as we are having active,
discussion.
productive discussion and negotiation, I think we'd be more willing to entertain moving the deadline just, a little bit as we're continuing to, we just don't wanna say, let's put it out another 9 months and see what happens kind of thing.
And we don't wanna wait much longer either, we wanna get this thing going and.
Yeah, I'm sort of on that because deadlines usually make things happen.
They
So-
do, and we have
Good
the
with that.
deadline there, but the October deadline was a letter that was gonna come to me from the city manager saying that we're gonna go ahead and close on buying the property back. That's what we were concerned about. And it did motivate us to find get this good guy involved with the project. And that made a difference.
Even when you have to work with your brother.
Yeah, it's tough.
I never work with family.
We don't.
For a reason.
But we know that he can do it, and myself and my other partners are happy to have him involved because he's proven. So that's why we did it, and he is able to do it, he can focus on the project. So we're gonna proceed with this direction, we're gonna come back with plans, and we're anxious to get ground going, like, we don't wanna wait much longer.
The other part of my resume is I'll build it. I'm the general contractor as well as the developer. So
That's a big, that's a.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
So-
and I would say, look, if we need to have a closed door session to talk about potential tenants, you know,
Sure.
you don't wanna
Yeah,
give
we
anything away, we're happy to have
Yeah.
that conversation
Okay.
too, so.
I'd love to do that.
Thank you,
There you go.
so, thank you.
Trader Joe's, it's on my list.
Yeah, what is it, Trader Joe's or Cheesecake Factory? That's pretty much
Yeah.
just like everybody in the whole world goes to. No, I'm joking.
Cheesecake for you.
Well, we appreciate your time, council, and your patience over the last 3 years, we're gonna get somewhere.
We understand, not all your fault.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you,
guys.
guys. Thanks so much.
Okay, move on to item, so let's put that down and talk about that. Can we touch on that tonight and close that?
Do we,
Okay.
I'm wondering if we should move, if we're getting short on the time, we should move those 2.4 up, because the other, I think,
Make sure
is
we
there,
get to
is
it.
there somebody here for 2.2 that you're aware of?
There's no one coming. It
So-
could be pretty quick, I think, too.
Okay.
I
I was
think it would be
thinking,
too.
Oh,
if
that's
they're
that one.
quick,
Yeah.
but I wanna make sure that we reserve enough time for you guys to have a conversation about it.
Should we drive fast? Can we go fast?
I think we can do it fast.
Okay, let's do it fast.
Okay, so this is the driveway on 6400 West Rose Canyon Road where the resident has come in. It's in the budget to do the work. Her profession is construction management. So she went out and got a bid on the work. It's about $5,000 less than what our budget is. And we're proposing that we just supply the funds to the resident and have her do the project rather than the city going in and doing the project on private property, which is typically
Like there's a
not the normal way.
As long as the agreement
There's a
covers
letter
us,
release
yeah.
and everything.
You can't come back and say she wants more.
Yeah, that would be the one thing that we work on.
And $5,000 less, I like that too.
Cause
And
it's
that
not
gives her
government.
10% contingency, so if she runs into some issues, she'll be able to finish the project.
Sweet.
And they're a pretty awesome couple, but that's where that old drainage ditch, that when we fixed that
Vacated.
road,
Yeah, yeah.
we vacated that, so.
She's been very
Yeah.
patient, great to work with. It's been years in the
10
making.
years, something like that.
20, since Rose Canyon was built. So, you okay with that?
Yep.
That way.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, 2.3, discussion pertaining to pioneering, could this one be passed?
My presentation's probably about 10 minutes, but I don't know how long council discussion will be. I'm okay moving it to later.
Okay, I didn't know how long that, okay, let's go to 2.4, if council doesn't have any objections to that. Okay, discussion of permitted and conditional land uses within, hold on, North of Miller, Crescent and Garden.
Okay, so as the council knows, this is a work session discussion that you had requested. So in your packet, we included an excerpt of the land use tables for the C2 zone, the M1 zone, and then the far right column is for the auto mall zone. And as you can see, there's nothing in that right column except for, we do have, and I gave you a printed copy, we do have in our existing definitions, these series of dealership, both used and new dealerships for both vehicles and for recreational vehicles and boats and things. So the proposal would be to use those same definitions, those same terms, and of course, the request from the developer is to make all of those permitted in the auto mall district. Another issue that we've talked about is the development team is requesting that all of the uses are permitted in the C2 zone. So we have a number that are conditional. And then there's an introduction on the north of Miller property to look at some M1 uses and again make those permitted. So we talked last time about keeping those as conditional uses, but identifying that would be an administrative review. It would be a a staff level review. We would still follow the same standards that are used for traditional review, but it would be all administrative. So what we'd like to identify or hear from the council, are there any additional prohibited uses that the council would like to add? And you'll see on that very last page of this handout, and again, this was in your packet, there is the list of proposed prohibited uses. The very first page has a list of already established prohibited uses in our code. So those are already prohibited. Of course, the question is dealing with schools and churches. The development team identified some of our school uses. They identified charter school, elementary, middle, or high, and vocational. We also include, we have boarding school and therapeutic that they did not include in their proposed list of prohibited uses. So those might be two additional school types that we define that you might want to include in your prohibited land use. So yeah, that's what this discussion is which additional land uses do you feel like would be inappropriate on the garden plot, crescent shaped parcel potentially, and the north of Miller when it comes to introducing some M1 uses on the north of Miller piece.
Are we specifically saying which M1 uses, not all
Yeah, so
some M1
we just wanna be clear. Yeah, and so this is, like I said, this is what is currently in the code right now.
Laundry services? Laundromat? They could, right?
Permitted in C2.
It's permitted, yeah, no, in M1.
But I think the M1 area where they're talking about specifically is north of Miller,
Right.
and that is specific to the flex space, correct?
So flex space is not really a use, it's what you do in that flex space, right?
Okay.
What are the uses that you're gonna put into that type of building?
Better with a specific list of what can go in there as opposed to this whole list.
Yeah.
Agreed. And that's what they're proposing in the MDA on the exhibit C. They have a list of 10 uses that they want as a permitted use. And not referencing,
Okay,
and some of those are historically in M1, but they throw it in the MDA to be a permitted use. So when you're looking at that list in the staff report, not all of those are in there, there's only a few of them.
So the developer specifically wants a certain list for approved or permitted uses.
Yeah, for north of Miller, they want office, professional, restaurant, vehicle and equipment rental, vehicle equipment repair, telecommunications facility, light manufacturing, wholesale and warehouse, general, vehicle storage yard, office warehouse, flex space, and retail. Some of those are commercial too. Like in the C2 zone.
What page is that on? Sorry.
68.
68, thank you.
Which piece were you?
No, and
Oh, the MDA is gonna be in the 400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on
I'm
the
trying
juice
to-
pages.
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah, you're on
this.
you're on a different page.
I saw it.
I'm on my own Word
Oh.
document. I can find it.
Alright, it's exhibit C, you say?
Exhibit C in the north of Miller MDA.
That is page 500.
So many.
Or, yeah, 500.
Yep, that's it.
After all the traffic.
Right? That's the last night I was just pulling my hair out.
Okay, let's just go through, can we just go down, check, I mean, these are what they're, and again, there's further discussion in the general meeting, let's just, if this is the route we go, would these be the permitted uses?
Well, getting back to Michael's point, flex space, what is that?
Well, that's what we're saying,
technically
these are
refer-
uses.
No, but you're right, but
These
it's
are the
number
uses
10.
in the flex space.
He's got
But it's listed
10
number 10 as
listed,
flex space.
Flex space office.
So-
warehouse.
So Michael, are you
that's not a
suggesting,
defined.
It's not a
term in our
defined
code.
use.
So that 10 is
Yeah.
gets stricken off there because already office warehouse is number 9.
Technically, flex space is 1 through 9,
Flex space is a building,
correct?
right?
Or the type of structure, yeah.
The number 5, the wireless telecommunication facility, I don't know if I understand exactly what that is.
Didn't we say that could only be
It's
on?
only go on public or quasi-public property, so
Tower.
it would be up on the trail area possibly, and that would have to be.
But that's basically just a wireless tower is what they're talking about and the equipment associated with that.
Cell tower, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
What about ham radios?
Any on there that we're not?
Number 7 doesn't excite me.
Yeah, it's a vehicle storage yard.
I don't want it to be a tow storage yard, you know?
More
Or tow
definition
lot.
on that, right? Or even striking that, cause you got vehicle and equipment rental, you're obviously gonna have some sort of storage with that facility.
Storage is allowed as an accessory
But that would be an
use. This
accessory
would
use
Yeah.
to that specific.
Correct.
This is being called out as a separate.
Just as
in
a
and
separate
of
Correct.
set, yeah.
Different than.
In the table that we sent over, I believe that Nathan sent over, staff is proposing to remove vehicle storage yard from the permitted use.
Okay.
And I would, right,
Good
So it'll
suggestion.
be 7 and 10.
unless there
Goes
could
off
be
of
a
this, or-
better proposal of language that what they're after.
Is there, was professional?
The rest of those in concept, I'm okay with. I think a lot of those are complementary to it.
The light manufacturing, what does that consist of, Michael?
What, I'm sorry,
Light manufacturing typically?
I can open up that definition.
I believe the vehicle storage yard is an accessory use in the AMSD,
Yeah.
it's just standalone,
This was.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't like it
make
as a standalone.
Although maybe our tow truck drivers don't have to drive so far to store a vehicle.
They'll still charge the same amount.
They
So
still-
light manufacturing is an establishment engaged in limited processing, fabrication, assembly, and packaging of products utilizing processes that have no noise, odor, vibration, or other impacts discernible outside of building.
Like a screen print
Yeah.
place or.
Or a bottle filling facility, something, yeah.
Awful job up. Any others on that area that would not be open to the permitted use?
And the applicant's fine with the 7 to 10 uses that they proposed, I'm assuming?
7 is vehicle storage?
Well, yeah, vehicle storage would go off, and then number 10 would be flex space, so you got 8 permitted uses.
Flex space and office warehouse are,
Office warehousing is
Oh,
number 9, flex space is in
yeah.
the defined code. Flex space is a building.
It's really not.
yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, we're not really taking
I think it
anything
makes
except
sense.
storage.
We don't want vehicle storage other than the accessory use in ASD.
Correct, which you still maintain with
Right.
the
Right.
right? Any other concerns on permitted uses there?
Just to qualify the wireless telecommunications facility where I spent a lot of time in this at South Jordan, is that if you do allow for it, have the telecommunications have some sort of, what's the word, a mechanism where they blend in, because there's some other federal laws that if you don't have that certain language in there and certain restrictions, then they're permitted under federal law to do
Whatever, now.
bigger and higher than what city code permits.
Okay, I'd like to see that in there, that language too then.
So
In our M1,
with that
we have a
one,
high
if we were just saying those are the permitted uses and everything else is prohibited.
Correct. That's how I'd understand it.
Just wanna make
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, cause there's no other list of conditional uses, there's just the AMSD uses and these additional permitted uses.
Is there a process to come back and ask for conditional use after the MDA?
There's always a process, right?
Sure, yeah,
Always amended it, right?
to amend it, okay.
If somebody wants to build a 40,000 square foot gaming facility there or something.
Too soon? Too soon?
So again, on the M1 list, we're just removing, is it 7 and 10? The
Correct.
vehicle storage yard and then just the generic flex space office warehouse.
Yeah, his office warehouse is number 9.
Then, so really, it's just really the C2 uses.
So we're saying in addition to these,
Yeah.
there are also C2 uses.
Yeah,
for,
Well, no, it's just
In
permitted
addition
use
to
in this,
well,
right?
under
Or is this,
the AMSD.
That's where I got confused, cause that's,
these are
I'm
the
reading
only
two different-
seven
now I'm
uses,
confused.
uses.
So
two different-
garden plots, of course, is already C2 as well as Crescent, right? So they have the right to do these C2 uses.
Right.
You
Correct.
could further restrict it though through the MDA.
I think what he's
Wanted
referring to is what we had just talked about, would
North.
refer only
To
to
North of
the
Miller.
M
North.
North.
so North of Miller,
That was only for.
we don't need this table for North of Miller.
No,
This is just North of Miller.
North of Miller has all of these
Yeah,
permitted things
that's true.
plus those.
Plus the AMSD,
right?
plus the car
Okay,
dealership.
that's what I wanna make sure, okay. So when we talk about when the MDAs talk about the conditional versus permitted, that's in Garden
And
and
Crescent.
Crescent. Okay,
Because those are both C two right now, and they're looking to add.
correct,
C uses.
okay. Which, I mean, we wanna jump ahead to that then? Cause I would like to see those stay conditional with that process we talked about, that
Yeah.
still says they're allowed, I mean, it's just a different process that they need to come. There's no harm in it being, there's no danger to their,
Well, and I was thinking about that too, right, if it's conditional, but with a staff review. Because what we're trying to do is streamline the process, and I'm all for cutting red tape, if possible, that's really all the MDA does, that's all we're
Sure.
doing, right? So that they don't have to go through planning commission, whatever, but that review process to flush out the issues is important. And having it be a conditional use, so it has to go through that, at least with staff.
That list of criteria,
it's not limiting the number, the kind of tenants, that's just saying they're certain have to come back.
Well,
Through staff.
they're not just flat out permitted.
Right.
But they're permitted, conditioned
It's on
upon
staff's
staff's review.
Correct.
where both of those properties, abut residential
Residential,
neighborhoods.
for sure.
I think that's safe.
really good,
I mean-
because then you have some extra.
Correct me if I'm
checks.
wrong, but like the land use law basically says if they're listed as permitted or conditional, basically anything conditional is permitted as long as they follow the conditions, right? And it's not like we can throw on crazy conditions, right? There's there's parameters of what can be done.
It's possible that a city could arrive at a point and make a decision saying, here are the standards, the impacts cannot be reasonably or mitigated, cannot be
Correct.
mitigated. And we make a decision to deny.
An outdoor
You would
nightclub right next to the
anticipate
house
that
is
that
probably-
would be appealable, right? That is an appealable decision.
But then it's still
And you'd have
streamlining
to
the
really make
process, the
sure
same
that it's
thing,
clear.
but it still
why-
gives us
Yeah.
A little bit minor.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think there wasn't one time we ever
Okay.
denied a conditional use on planning commission, it just wasn't, just mitigation efforts we put in, but
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, so the way we wrote we responded to the applicant's Crescent and Garden Plot MDA is they wanted just everything permitted, as we talked about. We separated them as you can have the permitted uses in the C2 zone that are there unless they're listed in the prohibited section below. But then all the conditional uses remain conditional uses. The AMSD is a conditional use. But then there's an excerpt at the bottom stating that the review of those conditional uses are done at a staff level instead of it going through kind of the normal conditional use process where it goes to planning commission. And that should streamline it, but also give some overview of that we can catch something that maybe would be missed in a permitted use scenario.
So right now, it sounds like the only thing we wanna do is just, or maybe agree to, that we're just clarifying, we're removing the churches and all types of schools, right? We're saying that's a prohibited
You know,
use.
and
You know, like
the concern I have is when it's a conditional use, part of having a conditional use is to understand that it's permitted as long as you can mitigate some of the impacts of it, right?
Right.
But because of where it's located, we'd be mitigating the impacts on residences that border the property. And none of those people have a say in
That's a
what
really good
the,
point.
what the mitigation is, right? And that's where my concern is if it's up against a city property, it makes sense for the city to mitigate. If it's up against maybe other commercial property we could talk about, but when it's up against a whole series of residents, not letting them have a voice in the process about what is, and I hate, I don't wanna make it harder, but I also don't wanna exclude the people that are getting impacted from having input on the impacts.
That's a great point.
In Salt Lake City, we used to do these administrative reviews and we would still provide a notice to the community and just encourage them to contact staff if they had any concerns or questions. So they would be notified of the project, of the request, but it was still an administrative review process. We were taking feedback.
What are the different?
We've not done
Best
that
compromise.
here, but
It's
What are
tough,
the
it's,
difficult
you make a good point, cause it's that representation thing, right? Because still with that,
The elected officials hear all about it.
well, that's the thing is like we represent them, and
Yeah.
we're not involved in that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, and we also appoint planning commission who
What is that process?
And
that
the way-
does that process.
The way I was thinking about it is kind of what you said, through the first part, if it's all just auto mall and commercial and like those are the concerns we have with auto mall proper, right? It's not directly adjacent to residences right
Right.
there. So I'm all for cutting out as much red tape as possible and have them, if it's next
Like
to
the
homes,
Crescent
it's not
Tea.
the same.
Yeah, that's
So your,
right.
your conditional use would just go to planning, it never comes to council.
True.
No,
But
but
we have the
but
opportunity.
there's a hearing, there's
It's
a
an
hearing.
accountability to the
There's not a
voters
hearing.
for
Yeah.
having us.
Well,
things
but
that-
let me say this, it's posted, there's opportunity for people to come and voice their concern about it.
Yeah, that's the biggest part is an opportunity for those who are impacted to give input on the impacts they're gonna be experiencing, right? And that's,
Yeah, I mean, we even went so far a few years ago as to implement the whole subdivision pre-thing. Before you can ever even get this, you have to go through the community meeting, so I think that just establishes how important it is for our residents to be able to have a say and a voice in things that are changing.
And really,
around them.
we're talking about two of these,
Yeah.
right? It's Crescent and Garden.
Garden.
Garden is supposed to be hotel and whatever is left over
Yeah.
would be next to the residences, whatever's there.
Would that come back with the tenant change as well? Every time there's a tenant change or a use change, right? No?
No.
Just one time?
A use change, well, they need to make
Use
sure that
change.
they're still on the,
permitted
the
use.
permitted,
That
or
would be
if
when
they're
they-
a separate
If it's a
conditional
conditional
use.
use, it would have to have
It doesn't-
another conditional approval.
But that would be when they apply for a business license, right? I mean,
Okay.
this process is for the building,
Yeah.
basically, so, I mean, it's already zoned C2. That already exists,
I just don't understand why we,
then it would be, why do we need
how
this
much,
at all?
how much damage does it do to the streamline if they just go through the process, go to planning commission and have it heard? How, does it set it back a month?
Yeah, how much,
6
what's the
weeks?
timeline on
Wait.
that internally?
So it's gonna set a couple months versus staff is gonna be,
2 weeks, 3 weeks?
we would still do the internal review, we'd still go through that red line and response.
Just the notice
It's just that we don't do the notice, we don't write the staff report, so we don't take it to planning commission. And potentially, you could have an agenda item be tabled and move to a future meeting, you know, if we haven't resolved anything, so.
What if we do something within a certain distance of those residential?
what about if we just do the the Crescent piece and the garden plots, they have to go through the normal process, and the other people who aren't gonna impact the residents can go through the staff
Like
process.
Miller, north of Miller, for example, if we were to get to that point.
North of
Or-
Miller and
or-
Alma.
Let me suggest a possible compromise that I think there's a way to still notice the public of potential uses and give them an opportunity to voice those complaints or concerns that they have about those uses and what kind of mitigants they would like to see involved in that. You mentioned that you've seen that process done in other places. The question would be, I'm just stream of consciousness talking here, is there an opportunity to provide an appeal to maybe the city council if there was an objection to something like that, where there would at least be an opportunity for a resolution to that decision?
Any administrative decision is appealable, and that's already built into our city code.
Okay.
And also for reference, and this is a much smaller, maybe land use issue, but daycares, for example, are actually conditional uses. But years ago, the planning commission identified a few conditional uses to be an administrative review. And so we already, when we get a daycare application, we send out a notice to the abutting property owners, give them an opportunity to ask questions, express a concern. If we can't resolve those concerns, then we do actually take it to the planning commission. So we do have that process already,
Don't you do it with a lot of home-based businesses though?
only if we can't resolve the issue.
So that
the
process is
concerns
in
with the
there then
neighbors.
already.
So, I guess,
I like them.
I actually like
yeah,
that.
that seems like a reasonable accommodation, because there's at least the public isn't completely cut out, right? There's we're providing a streamline for it. If they have objections, there's real concerns, they have a chance to come talk to staff about it.
And they're noticed.
We appreciate staff's professionalism and consideration of those things, feel like you guys would do a really good job trying to take those things, but if there's not a satisfactory resolution for the residents, we'd like them to at least have an appeal on that, right?
What does
So it
that
can-
look like?
So at least they have a chance to have their representatives debate the issue.
What does that look like if I'm a resident and I get that letter and I email you or call you and go through that and I'm like, no, I'm really not happy about that for X, Y, Z, like what happens, what, if I'm just Joe Smith on the other
How do you
side
get
of the fence,
feedback on
like
that?
how do I
How's
know
that?
what to do?
Joseph.
As far as like the appeal process.
So he gets a
The
notice and
original
then he's,
I say John
Yeah.
Doe, is that better?
It just complicated, sorry, if he wants to. It's just been a long, it has nothing to do with what you said, it's just been a
Yeah,
long
so
day.
obviously, when we get a response saying, I'm concerned about this land use, you know, I've got the postcard in the mail. We try to
Spelled J-H-O.
answer the questions, see if we can resolve the concern. Sometimes we'll go back to the developer or whoever's asking for the, you know, land use, see if they would be willing to make some adjustments to their proposal, see if we can resolve the concern that's been identified. But if we can't resolve it,
ultimately,
then
the residents
oftentimes, yeah, we'll just go ahead and move it to the planning commission. In the past, I've had some cases where the concern really is not, it's not supported by, you know,
That's
city
okay, if
standards,
it's not
right?
material.
If it's not really, yeah.
Some
And
people just
again,
don't want it.
even if we
right?
Like,
move
and that's what we
forward with
did
that
with daycares, 'cause
administrative
it came down to we don't
decision,
want the noise next door.
that
That's
is an
like,
appealable
we gotta have
decision.
And do you notice in that that's an appealable decision?
We will certainly include that information, yes.
I'm okay with that direction, actually, that we,
Seems pretty reasonable to me.
Which one that we would go,
a letter, send a letter,
the normal
All that
process.
same process.
so the process reason for daycares?
yep,
Yeah.
same process,
Yeah.
yep.
That under staff review, they could kick it to the
The GC for a public review, you know.
So it's really we're still almost just a typical conditional process, but the.
Streamlined.
It goes to staff and then they try to handle it. And then if there's no complaints, then it moves forward right away and.
Yeah, I think that way it avoids PC unless there's some real concerns, right?
The process I'd see is we would get an application, and then staff would prepare notices, we'd send them out and give them 2 weeks, 3 weeks or something, 2 weeks or something like that, to say, get your
To respond,
concerns
yeah.
into us by this time. And then, so that'd keep things kind of confined, so we wouldn't have comments coming in for weeks and weeks after.
And again, I would say that's only on
Yes.
Crescent and Garden, not on North of Mill.
Correct.
Not on Autumn.
Just where the bus
Just
impacts
where the
the
impact
residents.
next to the residents. We wouldn't notice anybody next, and
The
probably those
others would still
anyways.
be just the staff review.
And there's a certain radius on that, or is it, how does that work?
We usually do 300.
300, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna
Yeah.
rain tonight.
Nope,
Okay.
you didn't talk about it in 1.2, so.
Or
Okay, so any other comments, questions on the table?
On the table.
I would make the comment that I would like to see those other two school things added to the prohibited
that's
list
true,
as you defined.
Yeah.
Honestly, all those proposed, and the church too,
Yeah.
those other proposed.
And I think, Todd,
Yeah, they're,
we included that already,
They're in
right?
there, right? I'm just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, yeah, and yes.
And did we,
And the developer was, okay with adding those in there. Didn't have any hesitation.
Could we, I guess through an MDA, we have the opportunity to do anything we want here. I would kind of wanna prevent car washes right up next to the residential areas too.
you could, that's why I included this list, I didn't know if there were any additional ones that you could exclude through the MDA that are
I'm just
normally
reviewing what my,
allowed
Yeah.
in the C2 zone.
What about a brewery manufacturing? I can't see a brewery on the corner right there, but.
For these two, so
Well, see, well.
for these two, Crescent and
Tank, I'm all in there.
That's true.
Crescent, it's, the whole reason to do the MDA is to allow the automall uses, right? That's all we're doing on that one.
True,
But it is,
but we have the opportunity to limit others with that
but it
process.
is zone C2, so if we do the MDA that allows the automall uses, it still is allowing all the C2.
Currently.
So is it better to approach that the same way as the other one that said, because basically it's what we're saying, or what they're saying is, well, if that automall use doesn't happen, then we still wanna go C2, but skip the process.
You're saying we could do the same thing as the automotive, you put in the permitted uses?
Just
Only-
list,
only conditional.
right, so I'm going back to kind of what Steve had said last time, which is ringing in my ears, every time I go through this is start narrower. And if something comes, if there's a use that comes, if this thing falls through and there's a use that comes in, they're like, we really wanna do this. This is 2 weeks, put it on agenda, yeah, change the agreement. That's all it is, right? So better to be more narrow, right? If we're doing this to allow the automobile use.
So it's almost change the zoning to the
The AMSD.
the AMSD zone. And then
if for some reason that falls through, then here's the things that we're definitely okay with.
Right.
But if it's not that, then let's talk.
I'm not following.
So change it, instead of C2, it'd go to AMSD.
Instead of it, yeah, well,
And then
yeah,
if you have
AMSD
permitted
plus.
use, yeah.
Instead of C2 minus.
Cause right now it's zone C2,
Right.
that's
Does
the
that make
zoning.
sense?
They're asking for the MDA to allow the automobile use for the dealership that
Right.
we're being told is coming for sure, but it still allows all the C2. But at the same time, it's stripping out all the protections of
Yeah.
the process,
So if
with
it
the
doesn't,
residents next door, et cetera, if that doesn't happen. So basically, I'm
Only
looking
for
at it,
conditional uses though.
Correct.
and
Cause permitted, no, we would never see permitted.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying that it allows all of that if you.
or allows all that and doesn't go through the more public process. So I'm saying, we're being asked to do this because it's gonna be automall. Yeah?
So he's saying let's zone it automall,
If
plus if there's other uses they think they
And
would
we could
use.
identify some specific, you know,
Just-
and maybe
just
that's good to get some feedback on some brainstorm you guys have had about some potential uses
So more
on there
like-
as well,
more
you know,
like-
and make sure we include those in.
More like the north of Miller, where it's, the MDA allows it to be automall or these 10 things.
One concern that I have is that the applicant didn't apply for
Right,
a
that's my
Zoning,
zoning map
yeah.
change,
Yeah.
so they're not asking for
Well, we
AMSD
would,
to be the
that's the
base
thing
zone.
is, we don't have to change the zone, that's what the MDA is doing, is giving them zoning.
It's adding a couple of uses. It's adding 4 uses which are already in the
Yeah,
use
so
table.
it's a land
Well,
use.
we're proposing to put in the use table, the motor vehicle dealers, the
Yeah.
new and used, and then ATVs, new and used. So they're essentially asking for those to be permitted uses, and staff saying that they should be conditional uses, but that's really the only 4
I'm saying,
additional uses
trying to think
that-
through, and I'm okay with your direction, but is there an easier way to do it? This is a really long list for us to think through everything now versus.
But the only ones we have to think about are the conditional uses right now.
I guess here's the thing. Currently, right now, this is the table, and we can't do anything about
Nothing
it.
about it.
Correct. This is it, right? It's all.
That's what I'm saying, we're doing the MDA, we're making it easier all around, so we can.
Yeah.
But if we add those automall uses as conditional, they still have their.
They want it to be, the point is, we're being told it's gonna be automall, that's why we're doing this.
Right.
If it's not, then we're.
But the only thing that changes if it's not is this conditional use process. That's the only thing that changes. That's the only difference is the conditional use, and we're still have this tool in there.
And we have the ability through the text amendment to restrict
remove-
other uses.
Which is what I like about that. I
Right.
told you, that's
Well, I guess that's what I'm
huge-
saying is, do we wanna
i.e.
be more
a
restrictive?
car wash right there. We don't want a car wash on the Christmas tree.
So that, well, that's what got me thinking about it, instead of looking at this long list, are there just things that are obvious that, yeah, we would, which way is easier?
But we can't restrict any permitted uses on the C2.
Sure, we
Is that correct?
We can.
Well,
We
yeah,
can.
we
Okay, we can.
Right, in an NDA we can.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can
This is the
restrict them
tool that
all and
allows
say
us
the
to
only
do it.
thing you can use is the AMSD.
Well, that's the point of this
And
discussion,
if you wanna
is
change
we
it,
were
come
supposed
back
to
and
come
talk to us and
prepared
show us what you
tonight.
wanna do.
But that was the point, we have to do this,
Start more restrictive.
You can restrict everything
so
except for
shoot me a list
AMSD.
right now, like I said, we told the applicant we'd have this discussion tonight before with this. We need to be our word, and like we told them we'd have this table sorted out tonight before the meeting.
I never said that, I said I
I never said it
discussed
would be
this
done.
tonight. I never committed to a timeline on it.
We didn't think that it was gonna be a pretty simple discussion, that's kind of what we thought it was gonna be.
Maybe that's a fair.
But
I don't know the answer
I
to my
wanna-
question.
I wanna advocate a little bit for a landowner, right? And the idea that if you buy a land with certain rights, C2 zone, right?
You should have those roads.
I don't wanna say, just because we're granting the ability to put a dealership, that should strip away all the other rights that are associated with that property. That's not necessarily a fair process,
True,
right?
but we also are granting them the ability to bypass the
Right,
process.
which I think allows us the opportunity to make some restrictions. But I don't think it's appropriate for us to use that latitude to strip away all of the uses and just grant a few back. That doesn't seem, that doesn't seem a reasonable, fair
Cause this is coming
exchange
to
of
us because,
permissions
especially on Garden and
there. Right,
Crescent, where really there's,
and Crescent, I'm more concerned about the uses than I am about the garden.
Yeah, me too.
Right, like, cause that is just surrounded by houses, that's,
And it's a commercial corner on Garden, and you know there's
well,
gonna be
let's,
corner.
we've got,
Yeah.
let's through this list right now.
Well,
Let's
that's
shout it
the
out,
hard
what,
part is I've looked through it several times and it's like,
What about that?
and what does that really mean? And so that's why I said going back to, is it better to take more things off that can be put back on easily, right? So that's the hard part about this is we have to think about everything.
well,
Again, I don't know the answer to your question, I agree with you. Not saying we strip away everything, but just the
I
idea
think we could take
being-
off golf course.
What about congregate living facility?
That one should already be
that's in there,
Oh, it's in there.
that's in there.
Sorry, it's not stripped down here.
and golf course.
So congregate off, golf course off.
Protective service, explain that to me.
It's public safety.
That's one of the ones that's already off. If you go to the bottom after that chart, you'll see the ones that they've already, that the applicant has already proposed to
Yeah,
remove.
on that last page.
Oh, there we go, okay, so it's Crescent,
So quite a few of those are
Concord
already
Golf Course, okay, odd,
off there.
perfect, okay.
So we're missing a couple of the schools, but those are easy, right?
Yeah, so at the schools, I would say car wash, I would like to take car wash off that.
Hospital.
Actually, don't know that,
Major utility substation or something.
it's, yeah, that's just a permitted, that's just a straight permitted use of the hospital.
Neither of those sites are big enough.
That's not,
Well, I just don't know, right? Again, yeah.
A
So is it-
not-for-profit hospital.
animal care service, they took.
Well,
Not-for-profit
they-
hospital wants to come, they come
It's
on.
not
So you don't want a car wash there?
So is it an urgent care?
Construction services.
I think car wash off makes sense just because there are,
Yeah.
I mean, there is
Yeah.
one, it's not gorilla. I don't wanna bring up the sensitive.
Exactly.
Wow.
No sprays.
I think I would say fireworks stand too,
That's
right
temporary.
there.
That's a temporary
I know it's
use
temporary,
anyways,
but
yeah.
right behind
But,
those
yeah, we don't
houses
want it
doesn't
anyway.
seem like a,
It's been there all year, it's been there every year.
Yeah.
The gas station.
on the Crescent?
Not on
It's
Crescent.
down on the.
No, on the other
It was
side.
on Garden.
Yeah, Garden.
Yeah, I'm
It's
just,
actually on the
I'm,
signs. It was on the
so
signs.
let me say, I'm speaking first about the Crescent.
Okay.
So that's what I would say,
Okay.
at the
Yeah, me
Crescent.
Okay.
A daycare preschool center, down the convenience store, construction services.
What about a public garage?
Actually, fireworks.
That's not
they
on
are-
the,
They do have a lot of restrictions about where you can have fireworks and what you can get around them, so they're actually
Oh, no,
probably one of
sorry.
the safest
Yep.
places.
Yeah, it's actually pretty safe.
I didn't read the right line item.
C2,
Some of
garden,
Sorry,
It's gonna be
sorry.
temporary, I don't care if somebody does a fireworks
sewer
stand
station,
during
maybe.
Fourth of July.
Most people.
What about a kennel?
Kennel, there's already restrictions on the kennel, I don't think they can, there's no outdoor anyways, if I,
It's a conditional use in the C2.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing, how they would have to mitigate sound and smells.
have to be indoor.
all that kind of
Indoor,
stuff.
we're actually
Yeah.
doing an indoor one in 10 of them right now.
Okay.
It's going to planning commission.
So are you leaving that on or taking it out?
I'm fine with it in there. It's like I said, it's not gonna be, they mitigate it by having it inside.
We took mortuary off,
Temporary use, mobile store.
It's a temp, it's just like a, like a
Trailer that
Yeah.
sells.
so parking lot,
something other than food.
just out here, Mike, parking lot as a conditional use. Can we make
Commercial.
that an accessory use to
Oh, yeah,
the-
it's, it's already.
If not, I wouldn't wanna turn Crescent Beach into a parking lot.
Like a parking lot.
Again, that would be a,
Mm.
like a commercial parking lot, like a paid parking lot as a primary use.
What's transportation
Obviously,
service?
Parking
weird
Like you'd
is
see
just
downtown, you wouldn't see that there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the others that we've done with, say, like the Maverick with the little stores there, we put into that one, no vape shops or
Yeah, I would like to keep.
pawn shops, that sort of stuff.
That's in M1, right? That's, if I remember right, that's.
Pawn shops
Pawn
are
is
permitted
already-
in all
And all.
areas,
And
as
we-
is retail tobacco specialties.
Yeah, and we include vape in retail tobacco, I think there's like a percentage.
We
Yeah.
talked about.
In the recreation and entertainment, as much as we want those, I don't know if we would want outdoor recreation right by the
Yes.
Crescent piece necessarily.
want those
I mean, I guess we could make that a
so.
conditional use for the
Mini golf?
outdoor,
If you had somebody wanna do mini golf there.
make the outdoor conditional. Just because anything's outdoor that's right up against those houses, that's the thing where I feel like
The noise
the
impact.
process has to be, there has to be a consideration for that process there. So I would say if it's an outdoor recreation and entertainment, that we would change that to conditional on the Crescent
What
piece.
if it was a swimming pool?
So right now it would be permitted, they could do that today
Right.
without it, cause it is C2, so
I'm
you have to
just-
think
Repair
about that.
service fee.
I'm
That's right,
making
limiting
suggestions.
too much, because it's
Okay.
just.
We can always put it back in, that's the thing about
Um,
PDA, it's just.
So far, I've
If
got
we wanna do it, we can change it.
car wash, and we could take out car wash.
I
A
guess
car
I'm okay
wash
looking-
and outdoor recre, there's only two changes that I'm suggesting we make off of the table they've already suggested, so that's,
What about vehicle and
far.
equipment rental and those vehicle ones?
On the Crescent.
well,
Just on
and those are conditional. And I think if those are somewhat associated with the auto mall uses, right, you know?
Yeah, I don't know,
So
I
like,
just wonder
if
if you want
it's-
them over there or not.
The
If
thing
we're,
is,
if we're
again,
gonna
if it-
allow
You got
for
a small
vehicle
equipment,
sales.
machinery, and then you got the rental shops on down the street, right?
With any conditional use, it doesn't mean that they can't, it means that they can,
You have to go through the process of
Right.
mitigating.
right? As long as the conditions are reasonable.
We have like
It's not
9 criteria that we check.
Yeah.
And it's to protect the neighbors.
Yeah.
Cause you can't, foresee every use that's gonna go there. You got these uses there, but something might smell worse than the other.
Oh,
I'm with Steve.
I'll say I'm
Too,
good,
yeah.
other than the car wash and making the, maybe
Just put a conditional.
maybe making outdoor recreation a conditional use instead. I think I'm okay with the
I
table
don't
for
even
the
care about
Crescent
the car
piece.
wash, why don't you want car wash there?
The loud vacuum noises.
Yeah, right up next to the houses.
But there's hours. Business hours.
Well, we have noise restrictions.
Yeah.
But we don't have business hours.
But there's noise restrictions, you can't do vacuuming loud vacuums after 10 o'clock or before 7.
Yeah, but if you're shift work or day work or.
Could we say
Working from
within
home
a certain
or-
dissance? Could we say within?
That's where we-
That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, I'm not
That's
trying
what
to
I'm
be
saying,
too picky, I
conditional
wanna
use
leave
would create an administrative review. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean they can't do it, it just means there's an
You
opportunity.
can
try to
mitigate the noise.
Cause we did the same thing on the corner for 6400.
Okay.
Yeah, I just
for
was
the-
curious,
for
I
the-
don't care if you wanna eliminate it, I was just curious, it's like.
Not eliminate,
car
just
wash.
make it
Conditional on a car
conditional.
wash.
So the car wash conditional
Oh,
also.
Yeah, it
it's,
is.
right now it's
It's already-
permitted,
Okay,
it's
it's current-
already.
Okay, I got the head
conditional.
nod, I got the head
It's
nod.
currently
wash?
permitted,
The
and
car
so on the
wash-
Crescent piece, I'd just like to change
Car
that.
wash
to
is
conditional.
conditional.
Car wash is currently conditional.
It is?
Yeah.
Did I read that wrong?
It is already conditional.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well then,
I saw a P
Yeah.
next to it too.
yeah,
Then that's
sorry.
good then, we're never mind. I've looked at too many freaking numbers.
This is a big table, right? I get it.
Okay, so I'm just trying to wrap up before, I know, I'm guessing we'll have a crowd tonight.
Anything
That's
with
on that's on Crescent Garden, same,
Garden, I'm more flexible on it, but as long as the conditional use piece has the appeal process, right, that we talked about.
okay,
the-
which it does.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
already in the process.
Okay, North of Miller.
North of
I think
Miller,
we
we're
just
just
did-
looking at.
Okay, we
That's,
did-
yeah,
that's-
that's
yeah.
the 7 other uses or 8 other uses, right?
Okay,
Okay.
wow,
Good
okay,
points.
okay.
We good? You guys okay with that?
Yeah, I think the one unsaid thing is the trigger on.
And we'll talk about
We'll talk
it.
about
We'll
that.
give you a chance to come
Okay.
talk into it. And we can negotiate it. Okay, look for a motion to,
Right.
We're gonna recess because you gotta come back to it.
right, so,
Motion to temporarily recess, work session to, congregate, to assemble and general session.
all in favor,
Aye.
or second,
Second.
second by Sherry.
Aye.
You have to.
All the
roll call?
above.
I don't have to on that one, right?
No, it's
That's just
temporary.
Close you, the roll call.
To gather in general session, to assemble and to congregate. Convene, that's the word I'm looking for, thank you. Convene, that would be the appropriate language.
To go over yonder.
This is what I would
Exactly.
see there.